Hello, I'm Dr. Neil Stahurski. I'm the director of the Karuzela chorus, a choir that sings in Polish for different events in the Pittsburgh area. And normally they would sing at Polish Fest at the Cathedral of Learning, but this year, due to COVID, obviously we're having Polish Fest virtually. So I thought it would be a nice idea to talk about Polish Christmas customs. How do you celebrate a Polish Christmas? And we're here at the beautiful Church of the Assumption in Bellevue, where I'm the director of music ministries. And I thought a good way to begin would be to show you a manger scene that I bought in Poland back in 1992. And it's a wooden nativity scene, and it was carved by a man named Włodzimierz Stępiński. And basically it's wooden, hand-carved. And the charming thing about it is, if you were able to see in more detail, for example, on one of the shepherds here, his coat is similar to a Polish coat that the Polish mountaineers wear, the górale, and it sort of has a decorative floral kind of pattern on it. You can't really tell probably on this video, but that's kind of the charming thing about it. And I just thought it would be a nice little thing to show you as we talk about Polish Christmas customs. And again, this is called a szopka. So what about a Polish Christmas? What is the central thing about a Polish Christmas? Well, I would have to say probably the most important thing would be Christmas Eve. There's an event called Vigilia, which is basically a dinner, and it's a meatless meal. And it begins when the first star of the evening appears. It's a meatless meal of many courses, usually an odd number of courses. Straw is put under the cloth, symbolizing hay in the manger. The meal begins with a moment of prayer and the singing of a Christmas carol, perhaps the most popular being Wśród nocnej ciszy. And the translation of this carol goes something like this: "Stand up, shepherds, God is born for you. Go as quick as you can, hurry to Bethlehem to greet the Lord." The meal itself usually consists of a soup, often a borscht or a borscht, a clear beet soup with dumplings, or perhaps a dry mushroom soup, and other courses such as fish like herring, called śledzie, I believe, sauerkraut, perhaps with mushrooms or peas, pierogi, poppy seed noodles, rice pudding, fruit compote, etc. Christmas Eve is still considered an Advent day of abstinence, therefore there are no meats or animal fats eaten at the meal. The Vigilia is full of various divinations and superstitions. They are related to the weather, life expectancy, health, happiness, marriage, and seniority. All activities performed on this day have a symbolic meaning. An old Polish saying states, "Jakiś Wigiliem, takiś cały rok," as on Christmas Eve, so throughout the year. There are some other interesting traditions that take place as well. Sheaves of grains were placed in the four corners of the main room of the house to guarantee prosperity. Whoever rises early on Christmas Eve will not be lethargic for a whole year. Children were forced to run around the house 3 times at dawn, in nightshirts and barefoot. Children had to behave well because if they were naughty and got punished, it foretold that they would have a year filled with spankings. Another interesting custom is that you should visit a neighbor and steal a small, insignificant item. This will ensure wealth for you. But you have to return this item on St. Stephen's Day, which is December 26th. You can also set an extra place at the Vigilia table for the soul of the dead. Add a place for an unexpected guest, a stray wanderer, or the Christ child in the form of a stranger. During Poland's many wars, at least one family member was always absent. The Apatec wafer is a thin bread similar to a communion wafer. And I'd like to show you a piece of this Apatec. And it looks something like this. As you can tell, it's kind of a thin wafer. It's kind of like a communion wafer. It's a square piece of bread. And it used to be the organist's job to bake this, but I'm not much of a baker, so you don't picture me doing this. But you can't probably tell on the video, but embossed on the surface are usually religious symbols, shepherds, the wise men, Jesus, the Holy Family, etc. And it's a Slavic custom cultivated in Poland. And the wafer is attributed to magical properties and even healing power. A specially baked colored wafer was given to farm animals to protect them from illness and harm. So if you have a wafer like this that's like a pinkish color, it's meant for your animals and not for human beings. A piece of the wafer thrown into a well will purify water. There's even a darker side, as anyone who drops their opłatek is destined to die within a year. In some regions, the host broke the wafer in as many parts as people at the table. And then he dipped each piece in honey, and while pronouncing the names of the household members, he stuck it to the window glass. Any particle that slips or falls off spells death for that person. Family unity is maintained even over great distances by the opłatek. Polish families will send a piece of the wafer with their greeting cards or messages to loved ones who are not at home for the Vigilia. In feudal days, the opłatek would be sent by courier or sleigh driver to distant relatives who at their supper would break the bread and feel the closeness of their kin in absentia. When you share the opłatek, you go up to a loved one and you can say something to them like, "I wish you much health, happiness, and good fortune, and after this life, an eternal crown in heaven." So you would just break a piece off and they would consume their piece and you would consume your piece. Animals have been given an elevated status on this night because of their presence in the stable during Christ's birth and can speak in a human voice. Through the years, there have developed as many customs for the Vigilia as there are villages in Poland. And then after the Vigilia dinner, the vigil dinner, families would go together to midnight mass at 12 midnight, and it's called Pasterka, or the Shepherd's Mass. So those are the main customs of Christmas Eve. On the season following Christmas, each day has kind of a special significance. December 26th is the feast of Saint Stephen, the first martyr, and he was stoned to death. And it's a Polish custom to have walnuts and to throw walnuts on that day, which is kind of an interesting custom. So I guess if you don't like your pastor, you can always pelt him with walnuts on that day. December 27th is the feast of St. John the Apostle, and tradition says that St. John drank from a poisoned chalice and he lived. So it's a custom during the Mass of that day to bless wine and distribute it to the faithful after communion. Not to be confused with communion, but they would distribute it in small plastic cups. And you can find different blessings for these things in different ritual books of the Catholic Church. And really, the Christmas season comes to a close with the Solemnity of the Epiphany on January 6th, where there's a custom called chalking the doors, where they write the current year and the names of the three kings on the doorpost or the lintel. And the initials are K, M, and B, Caspar, Melchior, Balthazar, or sometimes C for Caspar, Melchior, or Balthazar. Some say it actually stands for the Latin words Christus mansionem benedicat, which means may Christ bless this house. And often the priest will come and bless the door with the chalk. And it's another custom to bless items in church that are symbolic of the three gifts of the wise men. Sometimes they bless a piece of gold foil for gold, a piece of, maybe 2 spoonfuls of incense for frankincense, and a piece of broken church charcoal. And for myrrh, sometimes they put a sprig of juniper in a bag or a satchel. And, the priest can bless these satchels full of the gold foil, the incense and charcoal, and the chalk, and the juniper sprig. And the people can take them home and just have them in their homes to help celebrate Epiphany. So those are basically the main customs of a true, authentic Polish Christmas. So these are things you might want to incorporate into your own Christmas celebrations at home. And with that, I would just wish you a Merry Christmas in Polish. Wesołych Świąt Bożego Narodzenia I Szczęśliwego Nowego Roku. Thank you very much.